Nobody in the quiet little cafe expected the day to be anything but ordinary. Least of all Dana, a waitress who felt like she'd been on her feet forever. The air smelled of espresso and flaky pastries, and the slow afternoon stretch seemed endless. Business had been sluggish, and Dana couldn't help but sneak glances at her phone. Rent was due in 2 days, her phone bill was overdue, and the tip she'd gotten so far barely made a dent in those problems. Standing behind the counter, Dana tightened her ponytail and tried not to dwell on how small her tips had been. Her manager, an older woman with weary eyes, offered a quick nod of support from across the room. But Dana was pretty much on autopilot by now, wiping down tables and faking a pleasant smile for the few patrons who wandered in. Then the cafe's door chimed. Instinctively, Dana looked up, and for a second she froze. A tall, lean young man walked in, dressed in a simple shirt and slacks that somehow made him look both relaxed and put together. 2 other men trailed behind, almost blending into the background but clearly on alert. It wasn't the kind of place you'd expect high-profile guests, let alone someone who traveled with what looked like security. Dana's brain scrambled. Who on earth needs bodyguards here? As he sat at a corner table, she forced herself to walk over, pen and order pad in hand. "Good afternoon," she managed, hoping her smile didn't look too forced. "Can I get you something to start off?" He glanced up, and for a second Dana forgot her own name. He looked kind of familiar. There was something about his face, his calm expression. Then it clicked. Barron Trump. News outlets had shown his face 1,000 times over the years. Her heart kicked up a notch, but she reminded herself, he's just a customer. Act normal. "I'll take a cappuccino and maybe one of those croissants," he said softly, his tone polite. "Sure thing. Anything else?" He shook his head. "That's all. Thanks." Dana jotted down the order, trying to ignore the butterflies in her stomach. She wasn't sure why serving him made her so jumpy. Maybe she was just overtired. Either way, she headed back to the counter and started the cappuccino machine. Hoping she could rein in her nerves as she frothed the milk, Dana peeked over her shoulder. Barron Trump sat quietly, posture straight but not stiff. He wasn't scrolling on his phone or tapping away on a laptop. He just gazed out the window, seemingly lost in thought. That alone set him apart from the usual crowd, who always had a screen in front of them. By the time she brought over his cappuccino and croissant, Dana felt more in control. "Here you go," she said, placing the items in front of him. "Thanks," he replied with a small, polite smile. "Let me know if you need anything else," she offered, trying to keep her voice steady. She walked back to the counter, but she couldn't shake the strange feeling that still lingered, a mix of curiosity and tiredness. Minutes drifted by, and the cafe stayed quiet except for soft background music. As she wiped tables and restocked sugar packets, she watched Barron pull out a pen and jot something on his receipt, then tuck it under his empty cup. He stood, gathering his coat and phone. Dana nearly said thank you too quietly, but he caught it and returned a faint smile. "Have a good day," he said in a voice that sounded genuinely kind. Then he left, the bell above the door giving a final chime. For a moment, Dana stayed rooted to the spot. Finally, she exhaled and went to clear the table. She expected maybe a decent tip. Nothing shocking, but something above the usual handful of crumpled bills. Instead, what she found made her breath catch in her throat. The tip was huge. So big, she had to blink a few times to make sure she was reading the number right. But that wasn't what made her drop into the chair. There was also a handwritten note scrawled across the receipt. "Your kindness and hard work don't go unnoticed. My family has been where you are. Stay strong. Brighter days are coming." The weight of those words hit Dana like a ton of bricks. She reread them, letting each sentence soak in. A rush of emotion welled up behind her eyes, and tears started falling before she could even register what was happening. It wasn't just about the money. It was about being seen. The cafe door opened again, jarring her out of her daze. She quickly shoved the note into her apron as her manager approached. "You okay?" her manager asked, eyeing her tear-streaked face with concern. Dana swallowed hard, nodding. I'm fine. Just a really generous tip." Her manager frowned until Dana showed her the receipt. The older woman's eyes went wide. "Holy, are you serious? Who left this?" "The guy at that corner table," Dana answered, voice still wobbly. "Barron Trump." Word spread fast among the staff. A couple of Dana's co-workers hovered near the pastry display, whispering and sneaking glances at the table. "You served him, didn't you?" one barista asked excitedly. "What was he like?" "He was nice," Dana managed, still absorbing the situation. She didn't mention the note. Somehow, it felt too personal to share. The rest of her shift blurred together. She was used to every step feeling like it took 3 times as much energy, but right now, her feet felt lighter. The note in her apron pocket seemed to radiate warmth. By the time she clocked out, the city lights were flickering on, and she hopped onto the subway clutching that little piece of paper. She read it again, whispering the words under her breath. "My family has been where you are. Stay strong. Brighter days are coming." She couldn't help but wonder, how could he have known what I'm going through? Or was he just being kind? Either way, she felt a strange kind of hope flutter inside her. Like maybe life could shift towards something better, but Dana had no idea that this private moment was about to become a public conversation. Early the next morning, her phone buzzed like crazy. Dozens of texts, social media alerts. People were talking about her and Barron Trump. Barron Trump leaves waitress a touching note and a huge tip. Internet reacts, one headline read. There was even a snapshot of the receipt he'd signed, with his handwritten note partially visible. Dana's stomach twisted in knots. How did they even get this? Her co-workers blew up her phone with excited messages. "OMG, is that you? And this is nuts. It's on every feed I open." Strangers commented on the story, some praising Barron for his kindness, others discussing Dana's struggles without knowing anything about her life. It was overwhelming. When she arrived at the cafe that day, her manager greeted her with a knowing smile. "Well, look who's famous now." Dana felt her cheeks burn. "I didn't ask for it," she murmured. Within hours, a news van rolled up outside the cafe. Reporters wanted an interview. They wanted to see the spot where Barron Trump had sat, talk to the waitress he'd tipped so generously. Dana hid behind the counter, her heart pounding like she was being chased. She wasn't sure she wanted her story out there for everyone to dissect. That evening, Dana's mom watched a news segment replaying the story, complete with a blurred photo of the tip and the note. "That's you, isn't it?" her mom asked between coughs. Dana nodded, plopping down next to her on the couch. "It's a good thing, honey," her mom said gently. "People need to see there's still kindness out there." Dana sighed, rubbing her temples. "It just feels too big for me." Her mom squeezed her hand. "Sometimes, goodness finds you when you're not even looking for it. And clearly, you needed to hear those words, didn't you?" Dana nodded, tears brimming in her eyes again. She'd been pushing through double shifts, skipping meals, and trying not to drown in bills. That note and the validation behind it felt like a lifeline. But now, every corner of the internet was talking about it. She was caught between gratitude for Barron's kindness and the discomfort of being thrust into the public eye. The next morning, Dana got a call from her manager. "A morning show wants you on as a guest. Are you up for it?" Dana's stomach did a flip. She stayed silent for a moment, then said quietly, "I'll do it, but I won't talk about the money. I just want to focus on the message of the note about kindness." Sitting under bright studio lights a couple of days later, Dana told her story. The host read the note out loud and asked what it meant to her. Dana looked down at her hands, swallowing a lump in her throat. "It reminded me I'm not invisible," she said. "We all struggle, no matter who we are. And sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can lift someone up in ways you can't imagine." The host nodded, clearly moved. "Anything you'd like to say to Barron, if he's watching?" Dana paused. tears threatening to surface again. "Thank you," she said simply. "Not just for the tip, but for writing those words. You made me feel seen at a time when I really needed it." When the interview was over, Dana didn't scroll through reactions or comments. She went back to the cafe, tied on her apron, and poured coffee just like she had 100 times before. But something felt different now, like a little ray of hope had pierced through the everyday grind days past. People who came into the cafe often left kind notes for Dana or dropped a little extra in the tip jar. Some even just paused to say, "Thank you," with genuine warmth. Dana kept Barron's note tucked safely in her wallet, treating it like a reminder of how much words can matter. Over time, the media frenzy faded, but the impact didn't. Dana's life wasn't magically perfect. Bills still existed, and she still had to hustle. But she carried that sense of being seen, and something in her attitude changed. She felt less alone, knowing that empathy could arrive from the most unexpected places. The note's final line stuck with her. "Brighter days are coming." Each time Dana read those words, she believed in them a little more. And in the end, that belief was the true gift Barron Trump had given. A spark of hope and a reminder that even one small act of kindness can ripple out in ways nobody can predict.